Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio, for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Cheryl, W5MOO, Russ, K5TUX, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome. You have tuned in to episode number 565 of Linux in the Ham Shack, the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. And tonight we are in our short topics episode. So we'll be discussing a few things in the world of Linux and open source, and then amateur radio, and then our Linux in the Ham Shack segment combines the two together. And we talk a little bit about that sort of thing. But before we dive into our topics, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. For the on assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right. Well, I guess there's nothing for it but to just jump into our topics for tonight. And we always start off with amateur radio topics, so we'll go ahead and get into that. And in case you didn't know it, it's Youth on the Air Month. The entire month of December, several youngsters will become active with YOTA as 6 in the call sign. The idea is to show the amateur radio hobby to the youth and to encourage youngsters to be active on the ham radio airwaves. As you probably could have figured out from Youth on the Air. Give a demonstration in a school or local club, gather together with your friends, grab a pizza and make some QSOs, or enjoy a great pileup. Let's all show this great hobby to the world. Well, I think a lot of us do that at every opportunity, but yes, can't be encouraged enough. Feel free to make a QSO with the youngsters. They're happy to get some attention and exchange information. Licensed and unlicensed youths will be making QSOs. Be aware this could be their first radio contact ever, and give them a chance to experience a possible new hobby. And this, of course, came from the Ham YOTA events page. Ham
YOTA. Y-O-T-A, YOTA.
Youth month on the air it is. Yes,
Yes, it is.
So, excellent.
You saw or not? That's it.
All right. So following up on Utes, we'll let you do the second story because we're talking more Utes.
Yeah. The slim pickings were slim this month, but we have a great
The pickings were slim. They were.
Yes, slim. Okay, it's getting late. You can tell. Anyway. 2025 Youth on the Air Camp applications period is open. Applications are now being accepted for campers interested in attending the 2025 Youth on the Air Camp. Licensed amateur radio operators ages 15 through 25 who want to attend are encouraged to apply online at youthontheair.org. The camp is scheduled to take place June 15th through the 20th, 2025 in Thornton. That's Denver, Colorado, and the Denver Radio Club and ARR affiliated club is the local host. The current application period is for the 5th camp for young amateur radio operators in the North, Central, and South America, or simply the Americas. For the best chance at being selected, applications should be submitted by 2359 Zulu on January 15th, 2025. Campers will be selected by the working group and notified by February 1st. To encourage attendance from across the Americas, allocations for campers are being held open for various areas of North, Central, and South America. If countries do not use their allocations, or should someone within the allocation decline acceptance, those positions will be filled from the remaining pool of applicants. As this will be an ongoing process, everyone will not receive notification of acceptance at the same time. Preference will be given to first-time attendees. Applications will continue to be accepted through May 1st, and up to 50 campers will be accepted. The application process, the application process is free, but a $100 US dollars deposit is required upon acceptance. Should a potential camper be unable to pay the $100 deposit, they may be able to apply for a scholarship or a waiver. Campers are also responsible for their own arrival, departure, transportation, and to the camp location. Travel assistance may also be available, especially for those traveling from outside of the USA and Canada. Travel during the camp events is provided. For details about the camp, visit the camp webpage at youthontheair.org or email the camp director, our good friend Neil Rapp, WB9 VPG, at director@youthontheair.org. And that, of course, was, that came from the ARRL because I probably missed the press release that he sends to my email address. So be aware that is out, and you need to start applying if you fit in that criteria.
Yeah, excellent. To get more youths on the air, and up to 50 campers will be able to attend this year's camp. That sounds fun. I bet the people who go are really excited about it. So, and I'm interested to see them on the air. So,
yeah, they do some really good YouTube video content for the period of the camp. So if you haven't seen one before, go check out their YouTube page, and you can kind of see how the previous camps went and stuff like that. They do some really good archival information on how those camps work.
Yeah, very good. I remember like a month ago, I was wondering if Neil was okay. Apparently,
yeah, exactly. He's fine.
He's doing fine. So excellent. All right. Well, that's all we had for amateur radio topics. And as you said before, the pickings were slim. So let's move on to some open source. And the first thing we have here is Manjaro 24.2 Yonada has been released. Excellent. I'm totally a Manjaro fanboy these days, so excellent.
I figured this would be your topic.
Yeah. The GNOME edition is out, of course. Updates to GNOME 47 include accent colors, customizable blue accent colors with alternative options. I just go straight for the candy icons. And what is the dark, what's the theme I use? I can't remember what it's called. It's the one you use, too. Sweet?
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, sweet dark.
Yeah, sweet dark. That's it. Has improved performance on lower resolution screens, hardware encoding for screen recording on Intel and AMD GPUs, persistent remote login sessions, enhanced file searching with contextual information. And other notable changes for the GNOME 47 edition include Wayland color management protocol support. Wayland, drawing tablet config. I'm going to have to get used to it someday, I know, because, But this is kind of one of those things with Xorg, X11 still being around, and everybody's like, we'll maintain X11 forever because Wayland's junk and blah, 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 blah. You can still, there's still what, SysV init based distros out there, ones that
absolutely
have to chew. So,
yeah.
So drawing tablet configuration for tools is included, and energy management improvements, including override for misbehaving apps and monitor brightness control. Actually, I'm using Manjaro, and not this version, and it already does brightness control. So, but I'm not using GNOME, I'm using KDE. So that might be the reason.
Yeah, we'll talk about that Plasma edition, huh?
Yeah, so Plasma Edition has also been updated to 6.2, including support for drawing tablets. Are drawing tablets like a new thing, like a new old thing now? Is this like...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if people do Wacom tablets and stuff like that very much. So I'm not familiar with that at all. I've never had a need for that stuff. I know a lot of people use like Procreate on iPads and crap like that, but...
Yeah, no, it's interesting that the support for them is being included these days. I haven't even heard anything. I have a Wacom tablet right here in the drawer next to me, which I can't use because the tablet is not the thing that does anything. It's the pen. It's the stylus that does all the work. And if you go on eBay, you can pay $4 for the tablet and $100 for the stylus because you can't do anything without it. So,
yeah.
So the color management protocol support has been updated. There's energy management improvements, accessibility features such as color blindness filters and sticky keys. I just get food on mine. That's how mine are sticky. There's a system setting overhaul that's been done. Thunar file manager enhancements, including recursive search and file highlighting. Panel preferences have been updated, including pixel-based length and keep panel above Windows, quote-unquote, option. Why would you want to do that? I do everything I can to hide the damn panel. I don't want it more obvious. And then there's also control center improvements, including new options for managing the desktop. And some common changes include kernel 6.12 used for this release, which I just saw another story saying that 6.12 is going to be considered an LTS and will be supported for many years.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. 6.12 is good.
And the XFCE version features XFCE 4.18, including the Funar file management enhancements and panel preferences. And this, of course, came directly from the horse's mouth over at Manjaro. So cool. I'm sure my computer will be updating, hopefully successfully, to it very soon now.
Yeah, I would assume it probably already has, unless you don't do updates frequently.
I do updates fairly frequently. I found that the interval between updates is directly proportional to your system not exploding.
Well, I'd like to see how long you can let it go before you have to do an update. I know my Garuda systems, I have got them pretty complainy about things, and they still upgrade, which I've been totally impressed by. I have not bricked a Garuda system yet here, so
I have my Amtrak computer, like the AUR file disappeared, like the index file.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, it kept complaining. It's like, we can't find the AUR file. All your stuff, like if you try and do a PA Mac, we don't know what we're doing anymore. Well, it turns out you can just re-download the AUR file, and then it starts updating again. So
Nice. The fun with AUR. Yep. Well, anyway, not to be outdone, Elementary OS 8 is available now, so they have a new release there as well. Wayland by default on OS 8, so it's definitely that scary word or world of Wayland. It's the default server protocol, providing improved performance, better app security, and support for complex display setups. There's a new dock. The dock has been rewritten to offer a more intuitive multitasking workflow, thanks to feedback gathered from a survey. There's Secure Session. Wayland Session is now called the Secure Session, emphasizing its focus on security and privacy. Apps require explicit permissions for actions. There's been some App Center updates. The App Center now features a more modern design with improved app information pages, including mode for Elementary OS, badges, and links to app source code. Over in the accessibility side, they have navigation and onboarding has been rewritten for improved keyboard navigation and screen reader compatibility. And the Bluetooth daemon is now a separate package, making it clearer which components are responsible for Bluetooth features. And this, of course, is rebased on the Ubuntu 24.04, which I can't remember why I didn't include that in the list of things here in the notes. But it's been basically it's the latest. The latest LTS is the underlying OS underneath Elementary OS, which is what they consider the Pantheon UI environment or whatever. But I did actually take this one for just a quick spin. I was running it. I put it on a thumb drive this morning to take to the theater to try to run it on an old Windows 7 machine that I can't believe we still have Windows 7 running somewhere down there. But hey, we require donations to keep the lights on down there. So, it ran pretty well, surprisingly. This system was a Core 2 Duo, so it was basically the oldest computer you can put a 64-bit operating system on these days. And, it did run pretty well. It looked a heck of a lot better than Windows 7 did. I did not do an install of it because I was just testing the waters. And then I realized that the system only had like 3 gigs of RAM and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to have a completely gimped out system. But it does look really nice. As usual, the UI is great looking. It's very clean looking. The font rendering is very nice. It looks sharp. There's just something about Elementary OS that just really, checks a lot of boxes. If you're really looking for that clean UI, clean font rendering in the web space and all that stuff. So, Elementary OS 8 is out now. So if you've been waiting for the latest LTS to be underneath the hood on that one, you can go and find it. So there you go. Elementary OS, hit the Elementary OS website.
As a side note about the fact that Elementary OS mentioned that it uses Wayland by default, which a lot of systems now do. One of my biggest hangups with using Wayland was the fact that Barrier doesn't support it, but apparently there's a fork of Barrier called Input Leap, and I haven't looked to see if it's being developed in order to support Wayland or not, but apparently it is under active development. So I think there's a potential there for a future of a virtual KVM environment to support Wayland at least decently without having to use some of the more overarching stuff like your no machines and stuff like that. So I guess we'll see where that goes. And I'm gonna use executive privilege here to have you read the next ones because I'm going to talk about the topic afterwards.
Oh,
so.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so this is since we're just talking about releases, this is another release that just came out. This is OBS Studio 31. It was just released. And what's new there? Oh, wow. There's a slate of new features. How about that? And capabilities. Plus a bunch of bug fixes and performance tune-ups. And I tried to shorten this up as much as I could. So, in those lists, there's preview scroll bars now. These make it easier to move items around the preview, needing to hold the space bar and click while the preview zoom scale lets users see if and when the viewpoint is zoomed in. There's a there's a background blur filter. Hey, because everything else has one. But it only works on systems equipped with a compatible NVIDIA RTX GPU. So won't be using that here. And a recent NVIDIA graphics driver version. As well, there's also a QSV-AVI1 SEC support on newer Intel platforms. This, of course, comes from the Handbrake media conversion program that probably many of you are aware of. Also, OBS Studio 31 brings some first-party YouTube chat features to the fore. While the app had already supported many YouTube chat features for those streaming to the service, this change uncorks the entire lot, including creating and managing polls, managing QA sessions, rich emoji input, emoji foundations. I don't even know what that is. And moderation tools. Other notable changes in OBS Studio 31 include browser source docs underlying Chromium updated to version 127. The scene items now use relative coordinates. Existing scenes will migrate properly. NVIDIA audio effects split out from noise suppression. Display window capture won't capture as the first display windows found. This is on Windows only. Screensaver inhibit functions improved in the OBS Flatpak version, so this would affect Linux. There's better virtual camera failure messaging support for Mac OS. NVIDIA ENC implementation was refactored and now supports split encoding with the CQ VBR. Legacy QSV code removals for old devices and OSs. So there was a certificate update, which may affect capture of games with anti-cheat. Support for NVIDIA Kepler GPUs 600 and 700 series removed from NVNC. Pipewire plugin memory leak was plugged, and the Ubuntu 2204 support was removed. So this would be in just the deb package. Apparently the snap package will most likely still be supported since it brings in all of the other libraries and everything needed to run in sort of that virtual environment. So if you're using the deb package in 2204 and you haven't upgraded to the 2404, you might run into some problems with this particular release as it will not function properly or work or possibly even install or upgrade. So you may want to look at doing the snap package if you're in the Ubuntu land, or get an AUR package, right? To make Linux users feel better, the OBS Studio 31 includes a number of Linux-specific bug and packaging fixes, including crashes involving QSV encoder, window capture, or importing a scene collection originally created in Windows version of the app, which is appreciated. I have to say, I do not, when I do any type of game capture for Linux, I do not use Linux to capture that game capture. Does that make sense? I actually use OBS on a completely different computer that has an NVIDIA driver and everything else on it, and I use NVNC on that box to do everything. I don't know. I've never had success even streaming on the computer that has the NVIDIA. I always like having my streaming computer be separate from the gaming computer, and I use a complete different capture card from a different system, and then I just mirror my display out of my graphics card so that I see it on my screen, and then I pick it up in a in a capture card that can handle up to 1440p capture at like 60 FPS, and that seems to always run flawlessly. So I don't use a lot of the OBS features that are native to the computer I'm actually trying to capture, unless I'm just doing maybe a simple video capture for whatever, doing a tutorial or something like that. But even then, I still probably use a separate computer to do it because it's way easier to do it that way. The only complex setup for me, of course, would be the audio setup, which I think I've explained in previous podcasts, is why I have a microphone that has two different outputs. So I use USB-C to capture it for this podcast recording. And then I have an audio board that takes the XLR out of the microphone and plugs it into the computer with OBS in it. So I can do both. I can take I could talk in the game, and then my audio is simultaneously captured with the OBS on the other computer. Although it might be slightly out of sync with the video, since the screen is, there's probably a few hundred millisecond delay in the video capture, just based upon standard rendering and all that other stuff, and that the audio wouldn't be necessarily synced with it. But new release of OBS Studio is always nice to see. There's always great features and performance gains to be had with that. I wish there was just more for AMD-based GPUs in all of this stuff, which I'm definitely not seeing. And I have two systems that are AMD GPU-based that I do gaming with. So hopefully, in a new version after this, there will be some improvements with AMD GPUs.
All right, very good.
Oh, and that came from OMG Ubuntu. Sorry about that.
Yeah, don't forget the OMG Ubuntu.
I'm Ubuntu.
I'm Ubuntu, yeah, just to make that even weirder. Okay, so yeah, I just threw in a couple of things here because I was thinking about them, because I am looking at a screen across the room from me running Ham Clock on a Raspberry Pi.
Go Ham Clock.
Yeah, go Ham Clock. Except when I originally talked about this for the deep dive, they had released version 4.09. That's the one that I was talking about when we did it. And the very first thing I did when I built it on a Raspberry Pi was built the frame buffer version, because I wanted to be able to auto start it and have the Ham Clock pop up and run out of a cold boot without having to start the desktop environment. So it would just write straight to the frame buffer and not have to be running LXDE or whatever it is that Raspberry Pis run, which I think is LXDE. When I did that, the build seg faulted. So it's like, I was like, well, what am I doing wrong? Do I have the wrong version of the C compiler or blah, blah, blah? And no, it just 4.09 was broken. The web version and the regular UI version worked perfectly, but the frame buffer version was broken. They have since released version 4.10. And it works flawlessly. So now I have my Raspberry Pi set so when it boots up, it goes straight into Ham Clock and I don't have to touch it.
Nice.
But what is more interesting to me, and I didn't realize this when we were talking about it originally, but if you're running the buffer version or the UI version, you are also running the web version. It does expose ports 8080, 8081, and 8082. Yeah. As well as the frame buffer version. So,
I thought they mentioned that.
They may have mentioned it. I don't know that I mentioned it.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I know it. Yeah, it does both. It does both. So if you have the UI up, it actually already exposes the web UI as well.
Right. So, like, if you want to control, because port 8080 gives you access to the API for Ham Clock. So if you want to control it via API, you can do that using port 8080. Plus, you can have your Raspberry Pi running, as mine is, with a local screen in the frame buffer so you can see your ham clock. And then if you want to see it anywhere else, you can just connect to ports 8081 or 8082, whether you want the read-only or read-write versions.
And I think I mentioned that in the context of like if you're using the frame buffer or whatever, the UI version, you compiled it for a certain aspect ratio or pixel count, like 800 by 600 or what have you. The web version is exactly the same size. And I talked about like you could still zoom in and it still renders okay as long as it's not too small and your screen's not too big. And you could zoom into the web UI version and just make it, whatever, hit the F11 key and full screen it, whatever.
Full screen it, right. And
but it's not going to resize. It literally is still the same amount of pixels. It's just, that's the only limitation between that, is that the video size is exactly the same.
I think I discovered that if you build it bigger than your screen and you full screen it so it's actually sizing down, that it actually looks fine. So,
that might be something interesting to look at then. But that can't be working on the frame buffer though, right?
I don't know, because I built it at the, if you just do make ham clock -FB0 without a size, it builds the 1600 by 960 version, and I've used it on several different screens with several different resolutions, including the frame buffer version on the Pi, and they all look fine. So,
well, you might have a hack there. I'll have to take a look at that. Yeah.
So anyway, that was what I wanted to say about that, because I thought it was cool. Because it can power a ham clock on a different computer if you just. Oh, and the reason I did that, because I was being mental one day. And it just so happens that my Echoes, my Amazon Echoes, the shows, the ones with the screens, have a web browser in them. So you can have ham clock running on your Echoes.
Oh, nice.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's actually kind of interesting. I know a lot of TVs have like the web browser thingy mabobber. So yeah, that could definitely be a way to access it from a TV that's smart, but dumb at the same time.
Yeah, if your TV has a browser in it, you can access ham clock. So that was my little update on ham clock.
Sweet.
And then I just remembered that I want to mention something about the Minecraft server. The Minecraft server, we're now running like 1.21.1. I think, yeah, that's right. But that wasn't the important bit. The important bit was apparently at some point in the past, I mentioned that the URL for the Minecraft server was supposed to be hamshack.lhspodcast.info, which it still is, but somehow it got out there that hamshack.bluecows.com would also connect to it.
You mean Minecraft.
Minecraft, yes. So, thanks for resetting my brain. So,
Hamshack, I think, is your logging.
Yeah, right. So the Minecraft server is minecraft.lhspodcast.info, and somehow it got out there that it could have been minecraft.bluecows.com. And I think maybe in the various early instances of me setting up the Minecraft server, that might have been true. But for a long time, it's not been true. And more recently, I have set up a minecraft.bluecows.com, which is completely different than minecraft.lhspodcast.info. You can get to both of them publicly.
They're just two different servers.
It is two completely different servers, just so you're aware at this point. So if you want the Linux in the Ham Shack Minecraft server, minecraft.lhspodcast.info is the one you want.
Okay, so the big question is when are we getting the winter drop on there? Come on.
Soon,
yeah. So that's 121.4. So,
well, I could probably build it right now, but
well, if you get bored, you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That way we can have the whatever, the creaking and the white wood.
Yeah, very good. Well, I will take a look at getting that updated to the latest version. So, one thing I will also point out is that if you're a Minecraft user and you were using it like when we were doing 1.20, when you migrated from 1.20 to 1.21, Java version needs to be updated too. It went from 17 to 20.
Yeah.
So that's important. If you're using something like Prism Launcher, it will definitely let you know that you need to fix that. But that is something to keep in mind, that you will have to go to the Microsoft JDK and get a new version. Which, by the way, you can manage that version inside of Prism Launcher. So if you're using Prism Launcher, leverage the ability to keep multiple versions of the JDK installed that way, because then you can have different connections to different servers which use different versions, and it'll keep track of that for you.
Yeah, especially if you play around with the different mods and also like the CTM maps and stuff like that. So if you're doing like custom maps, I have versions, even older versions than
There was
17.
one I would try, that I had to use like 8 or something. So.
Yeah, version 8 to do a CTM map, and it's amazing. So like, if you start playing around with some other custom stuff, using some of the older versions is not necessarily a bad thing, but you might have to install some additional Java libraries.
Steve says, to jump back a story, finally a use for the Amazon Echo. About
Nice.
You can run ham clock on it. Yeah,
there you go.
All right. So that brings us down to the end of our topics for tonight. So we're just down to announcements and feedback. For announcements, we have, of course, please help support the show financially if at all possible. This is the season of giving, so a couple of bucks a month really helps us out. You can do that via Patreon and PayPal. Links, of course, are at lhspodcast.info. And if not, please just continue to support us by listening to the show. That's the most we will ever ask for, is that you just listen to the show. We really appreciate it. And also, the contest for submitted topics to go on the random picker wheel is still going. We'll announce our choice of an overall winner for that on the next program. And then, of course, as those topics come up and your suggestions are used for our show, we'll be giving out swag for those as well. So please send those to info@lhspodcast.info or DM us on Discord what topics you would like to have us talk about. We'd love to have your suggestions. And we also have a new subscriber, Paul Kongstad, something like that, who joined us over on Patreon and is now a financial supporter of the program. So thank you very much, Paul. But he also sent a comment with his subscription and said, hey, just join you on Patreon. Listen to all your podcasts. Paul in Sweden, SA7CND, Charlie November Delta. So thanks, Paul. We really appreciate having you on board, and thanks for helping to keep the lights on over here at Linux in the Ham Shack. We are assuming you like the show since you support it. So thanks very much for your support and for your patronage and for being a listener. And while we're on the topic, let's talk about some other supporters and live participants. We have free Patrons who signed up as well, Lee Marino and David Moe. Thanks for joining us. On Facebook, we have the Scioto Valley Amateur Radio Club, or SVARC. I'm not actually sure where Scioto Valley is. Someone will probably tell me before the end of the show. On Twitter, we were followed by Reza Illusionist. Now, this is interesting. I don't want to waste a lot of time on it, but he is a touring magician / illusionist. He's pretty well known. He sets up a home in Branson every so often, and we go to see him every so often. We probably have seen him, 10 or a dozen times at this point, so he kind of knows who we are. Why he has decided to follow the show, I have no idea. I don't know if he's a ham. I don't know if he's into Linux or anything like that, but he definitely followed us on Twitter for whatever reason, so cool. Nobody joined us on Instagram. On Mastodon, we had at Anarchist RRL, the ARRL.
Anarchist
RRL, yep. We had Nomadologist, and we had Dustin Royer. I almost said Antichrist RRL.
Kind of looks like that.
On YouTube, we had Ed Oxer join us. On Discord, we had Grunch, Hellcat, W5THB, and Tronics. Welcome. And over on Blue Sky, we had at TADM, at EGP6, at BCorey99, and at Mad Goat. No one joined us on the mailing list, and for tonight's very, very late recording, we had Steve KJ5T with us and also Mike K6GTE. And Bill says it's in Chillicothe, Ohio, the Scioto
Valley. Yeah.
Amateur Radio Club.
And I did want to mention just like a weird context thing. that you had mentioned in the last podcast that we'll be talking about Sweden.
And then I forgot about it. Yes.
And you forgot about it, and we mentioned it in this podcast because it was part of this one. So, inside baseball, we're recording 2 episodes tonight. So,
if you hadn't figured that out already, all on your own, now you know for sure. So. All right. Well, that brings us down to the end of the show. So thanks, everybody, for being here. We really appreciate your listenership, and we also appreciate your financial support if you choose to go that route. And with that, we will sign off for this. Our next episode will be the last of 2024. It will be a weekender / roundtable. So if you want to join us, you just have to connect to our Discord server, and we'll let everybody in there and talk if they so desire. We'd love to have you there. We'd love to hear your sweet and sultry voices or whatever. And we'll talk about all kinds of things, and we'll wrap up 2024, and then we're going to go on break until the 12th of January, 2025. So, and, of course, we'll also be announcing the winner of our random topic submission contest thing that we're doing. So we hope all of you can join us on December 15th for our last show of the year. We would love to see you. And with that, we'll go ahead and let you get back to whatever it is you were doing, and we'll sign off from this episode, number 565 of Linux in the Ham Shack. For the On Assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Live recordings are Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time. Our homepage can be found at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/LHS podcast. We're also on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Mastodon. Contact us via email at info@lhspodcast.info or via voicemail at 190954777469. That's 1909 LHS show. We also have merch. So until next we meet, remember to always heed your hedonism.